Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. Good afternoon and welcome to the high-level seminar, ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth, here in Bank Indonesia, Jakarta. A special welcome to Your Excellencies, Governor of Bank Indonesia, Bapak Peri Warjio, Vice Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Suhasil Nazara, and also our second session speakers, Deputy Governor of Bank Indonesia, Bapak Dodi Budiwaluyo, Deputy Managing Director of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, Mr. Leong Sing Cheong, Deputy Governor of Bank of Laos, Mrs. Fatana Dalaloy, Assistant Governor of Bank of Thailand, Mrs. Chayawadi Chayanan, delegates of the 25th meeting of the ASEAN Senior Level Committee, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is August, and it is my pleasure to be your host today. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is honored to be the chair of ASEAN in 2023. The theme of Indonesia's chairmanship is ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth. The theme is translated into three strategic thrusts: recovery, rebuilding, digital economy, and sustainability. This will be reflected through our high-level seminar today. Our discussion will be divided into two main sessions, and both of which will be moderated by Ibu Kania Sutisnawinata. But before we start the first session, we would like to invite you to watch the following video of Indonesia's 2023 ASEAN Chairmanship.
2023 is the year of recovery, the year of growth, and the year of ASEAN. Not only to overcome the effect of the pandemic, ASEAN countries have the potential to thrive and grow stronger. This wouldn't be without challenges amid global inflation and uncertainty. While it is very important for policymakers to make the right decision for their countries, it is imperative that ASEAN countries collaborate to strengthen the region's economy. In Indonesia's 2023 ASEAN chairmanship, the country will continue to lead discussions on various issues of concern. The finance track will maintain focus on three priority agendas: recovery, rebuilding, digital economy, and sustainability. The discussions and actions by ASEAN is important to make sure that the region and all its beauty survive and thrive for centuries to come. So let us work together and make this the year of ASEAN. ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth.
Hello, everyone. Very good afternoon, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kania Sutisnawinata. It is an honor for me to be here, and welcome to our first high-level panel. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, this year, Indonesia has assumed a chairmanship of ASEAN and has already officially kicked off a series of task force and working group meetings in the finance track, a leadership role that Indonesia has also assumed to identify priority economic deliverables to pave the way for a strong and unified ASEAN in facing global economic challenges and uncertainties post-COVID-19 under the theme ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth. And of course, as we know, as a regional cooperation forum, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, has an important role and position in the economic landscape of Asia and in the world. ASEAN is fast becoming the center of the world's economic growth, or epicentrum of growth. So what is Indonesia's role in maintaining the momentum of economic growth in the region? And what are the strategic issues related to strengthening regional economic cooperation between people in ASEAN? To explain a little bit more in detail, without further ado, I would like to invite to please join me on stage Governor of Bank Indonesia, Bapak Peri Warjio, and Vice Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia. Hello, Excellencies. It's such a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon. To start off, I would invite each of our distinguished panelists to give their opening remarks before we continue with some Q&A. And first and foremost, I would like to invite His Excellency, Mr. Peri Warjio. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Gania. Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, my fellow Vice Minister of Finance, Pak Suha Hasil, which is we are work closely. How is close is Ibu Sri Mulyani, Minister Mulyani, and myself, Pak Suha Hasil, and all of our senior level fiscal monetary. Indonesia is the guardian of our economic, throughout the years. Of course, my fellows, SLSC, senior level committee, this is my dear friend, Shin Xiong. Welcome to Jakarta, Deputy Governor Wacana. It's a long time no see. Of course, my colleagues around the ASEAN member. Once again, welcome. Welcome to this first senior level committee. And we are glad to have you here in this international conference. Wow, this is Bank Indonesia International Conference, which is special, dedicated to all of you. So thank you. Big applause to our SLSC members. ASEAN matters. Just close our eyes. Indeed, ASEAN matters. This word resonates very strongly in our mind and our heart. Just look around the globe. The over past 3 years, the ASEAN is the center of the growth. And of course, resilience. Just take a look. Last year, we experienced, for example, the ASEAN 5. We have growth. Last year is 5.3% last year. ASEAN 5, I'm talking ASEAN 5. This year a bit down because of global economic growth is decelerating, but still high, 4.6%. This is Bank Indonesia forecast. Next year, 2024, we expect ASEAN 5 will be growing by 5.6%. And this strong growth is also being supported by stable macroeconomic indicators. Yes, inflation last year is a bit high because the global commodity prices, supply chains, and COVID. Last year, 6.3%. But this year, we are optimistic. The ASEAN 5, the inflation will be down to 3.3%, and next year, 3.2%. Rapidly high economic growth, and rapidly we can control the stability, both macroeconomic and financial stability. Why is that? Because the ASEAN very disciplined. We are disciplined in central banking, monetary policy, not only raising interest rate, stabilizing exchange rate, but also we also support the economic growth through macro-prudential accommodation and digitalization of the payment system. which is supporting economic growth and inclusion. And beyond that, central bank policy and fiscal policy throughout the region is very close coordination, hand in hand to support economic recovery while maintaining, of course, stability. Beyond that, why ASEAN matters as epicentrum growth? Because we consistently do the structural reform. We are continue reforming our trade and investment. While other countries doing the fragmentation, closed door policy, but ASEAN in general, we are opening our trade and investment. Indonesia is one example. In the mid of COVID, we are doing structural reform. We are introducing job creation law, expanding the trade relation, investment, do also the downstreaming. This is the reason why ASEAN is matter of the epicentrum of growth. But of course, we should not be complacent. Global condition is still under turbulences, slowdown, fragmentation, and of course the war in Russia and Ukraine, tension between US and China. This is the thing that we have to be still vigilant. This is where, of course, ASEAN is at the critical juncture to show the world. Yes, we continue will be the ASEAN matters epicentrum of growth. This is the theme, the chairmanship of Indonesia in the ASEAN. We want to lead the ASEAN to show the world. So, again, this backdrop, Indonesian ASEAN chairmanship, as already being also mentioned, will focus on the three strategic thrusts. One, rebuilding regional growth as well as connectivity and new competitive, what we call it in short, rebuilding and recovery, which is rebuilding, continuing supporting the economic recovery, but going stronger, which is including regional growth, connectivity, and new competitiveness. Second, accelerating inclusive digital economy transformation, as well as also participation, digital economy, which over the past years, the backbone of the economic in ASEAN. And third, promoting sustainability, economic growth for a resilient future, sustainability, the green as well as also other initiative. This is the strategic thrust that both of us in the ASEAN finance track, both Minister Simulyani and myself, will also assume the chairmanship how, once again, ASEAN matters. The epicentrum of growth to the three strategic thrusts, rebuilding and recovery, ushering inclusive digital, as well as promoting sustainability. Let me just share with you, of course, my friend, my dear friend, Minister of Finance will also, reinforce an issue related to the fiscal, but we already coordinated the issues on the finance track under Indonesian chairmanship in ASEAN 3. I will talking three aspects of what we call it priority economic deliverables. Concrete on three aspects of the finance track. Pak Sua will complement other aspects from the fiscal. From my side, one, what is the priority economic deliverability that we want to achieve under Indonesian ASEAN chairmanship? One, the important that we strengthen collectively what we call it national policy mix. This is the ASEAN, the characteristic of ASEAN, why we can support stability and support economic growth, because we are want to show the world, yes, the ASEAN very sound and strong in national economic policy mix. What we mean about national economic policy mix? Three aspects kan ya, on this national economic policy mix. Of course, from the central bank, the policy mix of central bank, not only monetary policy to stabilize the price, inflation, and exchange rate on the policy, but also supported by macro-prudential policy and digitalization of the payment system. This is what ASEAN is characteristic of the central bank. We not only adhering only one instrument for interest rate, but also we are stabilizing exchange rate. We also use macro-prudential, but beyond that, we are digitalizing our payment system. This is one aspect of national economic policy mix of within the central bank. The second is the close coordination between central bank and government, fiscal and monetary policy. Yes, central banks independent, but we are independent under interdependence. Look around the globe. ASEAN, especially Indonesia, showing the world. The independence of central bank still within close coordinated fiscal and monetary policy. My dear friend, Minister Sima and myself is always talking time by time. Vice Minister of Finance, Pak Sua, with my senior deputy governor, deputy DGS Destri Damayanti, and all of us. We are regularly discussing, talking, forecasting what the policy coordination between central bank and fiscal. This is important so that achieving stability, be it inflation, exchange rate, fiscal deficit, allocation of the government expenditure to support economic recovery is coordinated, respected its authority, but collectively support macroeconomic stability and supporting economic growth. The third aspect of national economic policy, which is I alluded to earlier, the structural reform, which is ASEAN, especially Indonesia, showing the world that to support the economic recovery, the structural reform is very important, which is to include promoting trade and investment, digitalization, financial sector, climate change, food insecurity, as well as also downstreaming of many aspects. This is the first that we want to show the world ASEAN matter, that we are strong and good example of national economic policy mix. Policy mix within the central bank, policy mix between central bank and fiscal, as well as structural reform. This number one, priority economic deliverable that under Chairman of Indonesia. Second, embracing digital economy. ASEAN, especially ASEAN 5, the fast growing of digitalization, especially of digitalization of the payment system. Look around the ASEAN. Economic and financial digitalization is everywhere. Not only supporting economic recovery, but also supporting economic and financial inclusion through the introduction of QR, fast payment, as well as also embracing small, medium enterprises for women, for youth, for millennial. This is actually, the digitalization is very important. But we already not only fast growing in each of the members countries, but last year under G20 leadership of Indonesia, among the ASEAN 5 already agree to have regional payment connectivity. ASEAN 5, QR connectivity, fast payment connectivity, as well as we also using local currency transaction on those aspects. We are also will be moving connectivity on data as well as also on the real-time gross settlement. That's what we achieved last year. This year, we want to advance further, not only ASEAN 5, but including also expanding the world on the networks of the regional payment connectivity for all of the ASEAN member. Of course, this is will depending on the readiness of the member. So far, the ASEAN 5 is ready, but we inviting other member country which is ready. Let's go together for regional payment connect. This is fast moving beyond what the global initiative under Financial Supervisory Board of cross-border payment. This is fast growing. So this year, we will expand regional payment connectivity, expanding G20 Leaders Summit last year in Bali for other members country. Beyond the regional payment connectivity, we also will be advancing the works on the central bank digital currency. A number of members countries in the ASEAN already initiating, including in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia. We already also introducing, publishing our consultative paper. Starting in July, we will starting a project design. And last year, under G20 leadership of Indonesia, we already also advancing the work on the global initiative on CBDC, not only the choice of model design, but also cross-border CBDC and also CBDC for financial inclusion. So this year, under chairmanship of Indonesia, under ASEAN, we will continue also working on the CBD in the region. How we can compare note, design, and others. Beyond that, we also, for important areas for ASEAN on this aspect, including rebuilding regional on this oversight, regulatory and also aspect, and also strengthening on the foreign exchange transaction, and also how this can adopt the global standard and the inclusion. Third and last point on the priority economic development on this year, and my dear friend, Vice Minister of Finance will also add on this aspect, which is on the transition finance. This is global initiative on the green and inclusive, growth, which is more sustainable and inclusive. Further, we need to strengthen international cooperation to enable us how to find the balance. Transition toward the green and sustainable economic, but at the same time also catering the readiness of each member. This is a very complex issues, not only on the project design, but beyond that, how to encouraging the sustainable finance instrument on this aspect as high priority. The Indonesian ASEAN Chairmanship 2023 will also work hand in hand with all ASEAN members to accelerate the effort to scale the sustainable finance in the region, including also ASEAN harmonized standard in support sustainable development goals implementation. So I just want to say the three aspects. Priority economic deliverable under Indonesian chairmanship of ASEAN 3. Of course, my dear friend Pak Sua will, complement also add other deliver. Kanya, back to you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that insightful remark, Governor. We have been given so much detail about some of the main agenda or priority economic deliverables that are being discussed and will be prepared for throughout this year. In, of course, by the end of this year, the ASEAN summit is also one of the agenda that is going to further discuss, and some of the priority economic deliverables that have been highlighted by the governor in terms of building recovery through a national policy mix, digitalization, including payment connectivity and inclusion, and also transition finance. These are some of the PED that is going to be discussed. As I already mentioned at the beginning, working groups and also committees have been doing meetings and will be going to do so throughout this year and leading up to the ASEAN summit at the end of this year. And Governor also said that that is only one aspect of the financial track that is going to be discussed, as was already mentioned, of course, that to achieve a stable macroeconomic environment requires coordination, discipline, and structural reforms, among others, and coordination also involved, in this case, coordination with the government. And here with us is also the Vice Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Suhasil Nazara, who is going to complement some of the issues that has been highlighted by the governor. Pak Suhasil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mbak Kania. Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, especially Excellency Periwarjo, the Governor of the Bank Indonesia. And I would like also to welcome the ASEAN delegates coming from ASEAN member countries to attend this high-level seminar in Bank Indonesia today. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to appear here before all of you. And I would like to extend the greetings from Minister Sri Mulyani, who is supposed to come here this afternoon, but she would like to send her best regards and wish you all the best health in attending this session, and also to finish all of our jobs for our people. Ladies and gentlemen, Pak Peri earlier has already mentioned a lot about the priority economic deliverables that Indonesia has to offer in Indonesia's chairmanship of ASEAN in 2023. I believe that we all know the potentials of our regions, and of course, what happens in the last 3 years of COVID-19 pandemic shows a lot about the resilience of our regions. I can say that our region is one of the thriving, and coming to the end of the pandemic, this is a region that is with a lot of promising. It's a very promising region if we look at the other parts of the world, the Europe, the US, and then what happens in the East Asia, especially the dynamics that is happening in lots of parts of the world. We understand that the Southeast Asia is very promising. And of course, our demographics, our resilience, our growth, the way we handled inflation, the way we handled the prices and so on, attested to the fact that this is a very promising region. And that is the reason why when we look at the ASEAN chairmanship, and Indonesia is continuing this ASEAN chairmanship from the G20 presidency, there is some sort of continuation that we would like to establish. Of course, the three strategic thrusts. First is the recovery building, the digital economy, and the sustainability are really three areas where we look at the world is moving. Of course, number one, recovery rebuilding. We have just finished the pandemic. We are happy. We are so thankful that we can come to this stage. If you look at 3 years ago, virus, no vaccine. The only way to keep people safe is from limiting interactions. And we know limiting interactions will have economic impact that is unbelievably have the impact to all of us. And we have already endured that in the last 2-3 years. So when we do the recovery, rebuilding, we are very happy to look at, we are so happy to be in the traffic jam. That is to say, we hate traffic jam a lot, but at some point we are so thankful with the traffic jam. We are so sad when we look at the many tourist destinations in the ASEAN countries, many ASEAN countries. Tourist destinations basically empty, department stores basically empty. We are so happy when we look at the Bali is back to traffic jam. But of course, this has to, this kind of recovery, we have to continue, but not only continue in the recovery, but we have to grow and we have to be stable. And only with the growth and stability we can move forward. The second thrust, the digital economy, is really our thinking about that is the way to go for the world. This is the world that is going into the digital economy, and we really have to make sure that we understand this digital economy. The government, I can say, coming from the government, I can say that sometimes the government is a little bit lag behind of the actual economy, the actual private sector, the actual business sector. And we really have to think about how digital economy going to change all aspects of our bureaucracy, of our world, of our society. Our taxation, our tax program, our customs, our many different things about the export and import, the digital. The move from conventional trading into digital trading, which is also moving the basics of our tax base from markets, from physical markets to digital markets. So there is a lot that we have to think about, and then we, of course, what Perry earlier mentioned about the advancing the payment connectivity, and then inviting everyone to be on the same platform, the digital platform. We see this not only as a way to provide ways for our business sectors for transaction, but this is possible to improve, to expand our small and medium enterprises. And we understand our small medium enterprises is one of the most important pillar in our economy. We would like them to grow. We would like the micro to become small. We would like the small to become medium. And we would like the medium to become a large part of the large companies, and we would like all of them to export. And of course, this is something that we can drive through the digital economy. Will make the way to allow our business sector to be in a better position. Sustainability, and Excellency Governor Perry already mentioned about the importance of what we see as a just and affordable transition. We know that this is the future. Green economy is the future. We have to move there. We would like to move there and then transition to go there in a structured way, in a systematic way. Many things that is happening now for the case of Indonesia and other countries, I believe also is looking at the possibility to fulfill the nationally determined contribution in a way that is also fit with the need of the country. For Indonesia, for example, right now I can tell you that in terms of the electricity, we are in the electricity surplus. But it is not happening for the whole Indonesia. It's happening in Java. But our people in Kalimantan, in Sulawesi, not in the surplus. We still need to build electricity. And of course, electricity is one of the area where the carbon is emitted a lot. So we would like to go with the transition to the green, but at the same time, we also have to adhere to the need of our people. We have to make the balance. And it is, I believe that in many countries, usually these are not a simple balance. And of course, for this, I believe that we can share stories. We can use Indonesia, we can use the ASEAN as a platform to compare notes. And I hope that at some point we can we can have an agreement on the regulation, which we would like to see the ASEAN taxonomy to really adhere to the need of ASEAN people. We have to go to the green. We have to have a good transition. We would like it to be just and affordable. We also have to make sure that it's possible. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to once again to appreciate the high-level seminar that conducted by Bank Indonesia today, and I believe this will contribute a lot to the discussions on the three important trusts that we would like to convey in Indonesia's chairmanship of ASEAN in 2023. Thank you very much. I stop here. Back to you, Kanya.
Very well. Thank you very much. A big round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen, to the Governor of Bank Indonesia, Bapak Peri Warjo, and Vice Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Suhasil Nazara. So 3 PEDs was mentioned again and again throughout the remarks from Governor and also Vice Minister, and this is what Indonesia has to offer through the chairmanship of ASEAN this year, and this is also based on experience and would like to extend it further for all ASEAN country members to adopt it maybe as a strategy as well to face the challenges in today's global economic landscape, especially the uncertainties. And maybe we would like to follow up with some questions as well for some of the strategies that will be implemented throughout the discussion, especially when we talk about the diverse condition, of course, in each ASEAN countries that we're facing right now. Governor, how important do you think is ASEAN regional cooperation in facing global challenges in the digital era and also in climate change transition? We talked a lot about that, but how do we implement the strategies in each of these different countries that perhaps are also facing different challenges respectively?
This is the question that looking forward. Before I governors, I'm being, around in the ASEAN working very hard, So this is my dear friend, senior officer, deputy governor, the MD, and so on. And yes, this will be challenging for us to move forward 2023. This is why the leadership is very, very important. One, our president also instruct us. There will be 2 leaders, which is May and somewhere later of this year, September and so on. Second, as I was alluded to earlier, a number of concrete deliverables that we want to progress. So how we go about it, your question, how to the strategy to deliver that, meeting the expectation of our leaders and working closely to senior level committee. We are the senior level committee, the direct thing, all of the hard work being done here. Of course, a number of PED need to be structured time by time. If we talk about transition finance, a lot of works need to be done. So we can target transition of finance later of this year, right? About, how the finance can support the green economy, the food security and others on the finance, We can put this works throughout the year. But a number of deliverables can work quickly. For example, regional payment activity, DMD Xinjiang. I think we can pass by. And in May, Indonesia, and we need to support from the ASEAN, we also have financial, what we call it, visible, economic, and digital. And we will invite the ASEAN to join this, to show some of the progress of the regional payment connectivity. Because a number of progress, we are working bilaterally with Singapore, with Malaysia, with Thailand, and I do also Singapore, Malaysia working, Singapore and Thailand. And in May, we can report some of the progress of the ASEAN 5 connectivity. And by then, we also will talk up to Vietnam, Laos, and other members, which is ready to join. Because for the regional payment connectivity, the national payment system, national payment regulatory, there is some, but there is also other aspect. So there is some progress. We continue to build by the time of May, our leaders, some of the progress, Pak Dodi, Budi, Waluyo, that we can report to the leaders. Digitalization of the payment system, regional payment connectivity, we can report on the May. On the inclusion, I think there are a lot of progress that we also working on the inclusion. This is among also on the G20 under India leadership. Also working on the inclusion, a global partnership of financial inclusion. Sometime in March, there is some works, and sometime in July, my recollection. So we will also on the inclusion. I think we also works. Yes, this is two areas the deliverable can be moved forward. Some area, other area that we need also to discuss how we have to rethinking the new approach of ASEAN banking integration framework. In the past, ASEAN banking in the integration framework through the commercial presence. We have to relook this because under digital environment, commercial presence is one thing, but the framework of integration of the banking not always need commercial presence because financial services through digital can be cross-border. So if we can move the regional payment connectivity in advance, that will be lead the way for the new approach of the integration of the banking through digitalization of the financial services. So, my fellow ASEAN level committee, we have to rethinking what the ABIP is all about. I was discussing with Pak Dodi and Buyati, DMD, saying, so can we do the approach not only through commercial presence only, but also to financial services presence in trade, in investment, digitalization, money market. If there is present there, then actually integration of the financial services. Then the institution not always commercial present. Of course, we have to agree who are the bank and non-bank qualify for those financial services. And what regulatory approach college that we need to work with it. So on the ASEAN banking integration framework, in addition to commercial presence, we have to rethink again what the banking integration all about under digital area. Financial services present, I think is good to look into. And then the institution approach, not always commercial present, and regulatory approach. And this need to work on that aspect. So I think those, even though it's very challenging, ambitious, remember, among the SLC, the central bankers, we are 24/7, kan ya. We work very hard, very ambitious, and we can target it, time by the time according to the progress, and we do believe on those aspects. Last point, because you already holding your mic, I think we have to restructure again the committee. I think we have to work the committee. The hard work is working committee on the payment system. This is very very hard working. The inclusion is also hard working. The ABIP we have to rethink again, but I think there is some idea when you move forward While, of course, the SLC usually start with the discussion of global economy, coordination of the policy. Those aspects can be structured in every of the week. Kanya, I've been around this, this ASEAN, I've been chairing, co-chairing, SLC, and working with so many years. I do believe the strong ambition of my dear fellow, and with the ambition, I do believe as a strong faith of the hard work deliverable of the ASEAN chairmanship of Indonesia. A very good luck, all the best.
Very well, Governor. Just one last question, Governor. Before I move on to Vice Minister, in regards to these efforts that you just mentioned earlier, these strategies that you should. How big is Indonesia's commitment to ASEAN countries, especially in implementing the integrated payment system? And what do you think are some of the challenges that are being faced right now? And how can we benefit, like as a region? What are some of the positive impact when we talk about maintaining regional stability, regional economic stability in particular?
The digitalization in ASEAN is starting with the retail. QR, fast payment, local currency transaction. And we will, in the process, also joining with the Nexus for the global initiative. Those are retail. The benefit of retail payment digitalization is fast moving for economic recovery, inclusion, SMP, and so on. Not so much about the stability. The stability issue of cross-border payment will come along with if we cross-border, starting with cross-border of wholesaler, real-time gross settlement, the CBDC. I think those stability issue. I'm not saying we should not disregard the issue of regulatory, because we already talking with in Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand, which is how the oversight, need to be collectively the standard, as well as going to the future exchange rate arrangement, capital flows management. But this is step by step. In short, to your question, our commitment, not only Indonesia, among the five, I do believe all of the ASEAN, for cross-border payment system is very, very strong. Yes, the issue is complex, but we started with the retail cross-border payment, which is benefit for inclusion, economy, and finance, and we work through bilateral and moving through multilateral, solving the technical issues as well as the oversight regulatory issues and policy issues, step by step. But believe us, ASEAN always holding hand together, move forward. This is the spirit of the ASEAN. This is why ASEAN matters for the epicentrum of growth, as well as digitalization, inclusion, and hopefully to the future, the sustainable and green.
Very well, thank you, Governor. Let's move on to Vice Minister. Vice Minister, I would like to perhaps focus more on the sustainability deliverables that is being aimed for Indonesia's chairmanship. When we talk about sustainable financing, especially some of the risk or some of the problems of some of the issues being discussed is how can we advance discussion in sustainable financing, especially in securing access to finance when, again, the same question to Governor, given the diverse condition among ASEAN member countries. So what are the strategies that we can employ in this regard so as to not bar access to financing just because of some of the requirements maybe are different in sustainable financing, Vice Minister?
Thank you, Kanya. The sustainable finance, as I mentioned earlier, the green economy, sustainable finance is something that is inevitable. Our world is moving to the direction of green. It is imperative. It is the need of the whole world. So let's go there. Now, but when we go there, we are not only talking about the end state. We are talking from the point where we are now. And to look at this, it is very important to look at where are we now? Where are our people now? Now, if you look at what actually produced the green economy, or I should say, what actually produced the black economy, what actually produced the emission, we can break it down into many different sectors: the transportation, the fossil fuel, the energy, and for the case of Indonesia, it's a lot on the electricity. That's why my previous explanation start with the electricity, because we use a lot of coal. Indonesia use a lot of coal power plant. Now, where are we? I mentioned earlier Java, so, electricity surplus. The source is coal. Other countries, other regions, not so much coal. Coal is there, but the other fact is that the people are still deficit in electricity, and I should say the deficits in the electricity that are good electricity that actually go on for 24 hours with a very good quality. I believe that that also reflect the situation of ASEAN. Some countries are very, very good in electricity supply. Some other countries we are still very challenging with the need to provide electricity with for our people. Now, if we look at the ASEAN as a whole, it is very important that we keep the commitment to go to the end state of green economy. But at the same time, it is very important to make sure that whatever that we use, whatever that we have, can be used to provide the welfare of our people. Now, this time we are talking about a very particular thing, the ASEAN taxonomy of green taxonomy. How should we look at this? Again, I would like to mention that it is very important that we look at the need of our people. Not only about the end state. The end state is very important, but then if we cannot adhere to the need of our people, well, we owe it to our people, I believe. So, if you ask, should we continue to provide access to the coal power plant? Maybe we have to think about that in a very, very clear way. For whom? Now, this is going to be very complicated, I believe. But the taxonomy should really be open-minded. The taxonomy should really think about the need of the people. At the same time, we should also indicate to the world our willingness to cut down the emission. And for that reason, that's why if you look at the G20 last year under Indonesia's presidency, we deliver the energy transition mechanism. And I believe Indonesia and Vietnam are on the same platform together under the Asian Development Bank. We establish an energy transition mechanism where under the mechanism we are willingly take down our coal power plant in the structured manner in such a way that we reduce the emission, but at the same time we have to think about building the new green, the new renewables, renewable energy. So there is no one single, it is not linear at all. We have to combine things. And then because for Indonesia, our regions varies a lot from the more advanced Java to the more needy like Papua or other region in the east. And I believe ASEAN is also something like that. Together, I think we can continue to provide to our people because we are the epicentrum of growth.
Very well. And to wrap things up, maybe closing remarks from Governor and also from Vice Minister. What are your hopes and expectations out of Indonesia's chairmanship for ASEAN this year?
Once again, I think ASEAN have a very strong spirit to show what that matters, epicentrum of growth. And we have a concrete agenda for this year. Yes, it's hard works, but I myself and we as a chairmanship ASEAN 5 have a faith and strong belief for all of the hard work and dedication of the SLC. General level committee that is steering the works, the priority to have a concrete deliverable. Let's just do it, and together we can move forward.
Very well. Thank you for that, Governor and Vice Minister. Any closing remarks?
Thank you, Kanya. My fellow central banks, delegates, and other delegates from ASEAN countries. I believe that ASEAN has been so many years. We have been doing the meeting within the ASEAN framework for so many times. I used to be the deputies sitting at the deputies seat of ASEAN. We know that we have the traditional issues. Right? In the fiscal, usually it's the Asian Infrastructure Fund, and then the taxation, and then custom, and then digital, and then so many things. The usual things on our table. But then we are looking not only doing that, we are also looking to the future, and the three trusts, the PED that we offer: recovery building, the digital economy, and sustainability, the green economy, are really the future things that we see we should think about right from now. So my point is, Kanya, let's finish the typical job, the routine task that you usually put on our table as ASEAN, and we also have to think about the future, and have strong stamina to think about the future, because this is something that we need for our world and for our Southeast Asian region. Thank you, Kanya.
Very well. Thank you very much, Governor of Bank Indonesia, Bapak Peri Warjio, and Vice Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Suhasil Nazara. Thank you again for your remarks and for your discussion this afternoon. A big round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, we conclude our first high-level panel. Join me again for our second high-level panel right after this. I'll hand back to the MC. Hello again, and welcome to the second high-level panel of this high-level seminar. And without further ado, to please join me on stage, I would like to invite Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Indonesia, Mr. Dodi Budi Waluyo. Please welcome. Deputy Managing Director of the Excellencies, it's a pleasure to have you with us in the second panel. Ladies and gentlemen, macroeconomic stability and also financial system policies are high on the agenda at this year's finance track for ASEAN Summit under Indonesia's chairmanship. The ASEAN region until now remain one of the fastest growing regions of the world. However, ASEAN economic growth will face big challenges due to worsening global economic conditions, high uncertainty, geopolitical issue, and tightening monetary policy. As was mentioned earlier, maybe in the first discussion, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, latest global growth report forecast for 5 ASEAN countries was cut to 4.3% from 4.5%. However, in the second half of this year, we'll likely see conditions that are more conducive to organic growth as falling inflation provides central banks with greater rate flexibility, and this should complement increasing economic activity in the region. The ASEAN region will also remain attractive to foreign direct investment and become the epicentrum of growth despite a more challenging macroeconomic environment. And in the second session, in this high-level seminar, ASEAN Central Bank will answer how ASEAN countries will address these issues and how the ASEAN nations could benefit from a privileged position in the global economy and a strategic geopolitical position for a better future, of course. And again, I would like to introduce our panelist right now, distinguished panelist. Next to me is Deputy Governor of Bank of the Lao PDR, Mrs. Avatana Dalaloy. Welcome. And next to Ms. Deputy Governor Dalaloy, we have Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Indonesia, Mr. Dodi Budi Waluyo. Welcome. And Deputy Managing Director of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, Mr. Leong Sing Cheong. Welcome. And Assistant Governor Bank of Thailand, Mrs. Chayawadi Chai Anan. Welcome. Thank you again, Deputy Governors, for joining us in this very special panel. So, as before, in the first panel, we would like to start with a round of remarks from each of you. And first and foremost, I would like to invite Deputy Governor Bapak Dodi Waluyo. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Kania. Good afternoon to everybody, mostly DG Fatana, DG Seng Leong, and DG Jaiwadi, and all attendants. I think Indonesia assuming the chair of the ASEAN in the year 2023 with the question mark. Whether we are in the period of the recovery or where we are. I think when we are finishing our presidency G20 last year, I think the message sent from us, from Bali is, I think countries, the global, ready to address all the obstacles. We are not saying yet that we are already in the end of the tunnel, but we are not like in the beginning of the tunnel. We are somewhere of the tunnel. We just finished the G20 under presidency of India last week. In India, in Bangalore, for the finance track. The message sent from the India also saying that yes, there is some indication, all indicators showing better off. But some countries, major countries, probably they are in a deep problem with the recession. I think the point here is what I want to say is no, Indonesia as a chair of ASEAN 2023 try to bring as a togetherness of the ASEAN countries. We are facing probably an easy problem in the years ahead. Probably in the months ahead. I will not say years ahead. I just want to say the months ahead. So what we want to say here is again, I think now every member state, IMS, try to have extraordinary policies to combat two things. At least maintain the stability while also supporting the growth. It's not easy. I think we have to choose one of them. But if may, we can also try to find all the way to get those two resolved. The second thing that I want to bring here is ASEAN as a group with the spirit of cooperation. ASEAN is always, we are like a small family or big family. We have the same common concern. We have to collaborate. We have to dialogue. And we have to synergize. I think that's the positive. You want to say that ASEAN able to bring, to showcase to the world that we are able to face all the obstacles, headwinds coming from the global. We have 16 priorities under ASEAN, under Indonesian chairmanship. And from the finance track, finance process, 3 of the strategic thrusts of the 16 will bring here. Recovery, rebuilding, digital economy, and sustainability. I think on the recovery, rebuilding, the one under our chair, we want to bring some understanding to the ASEAN members regarding the policy normalization. Policy normalization, I think we have to take sooner or later. But the message already sent from IOs, from the fund, from the World Bank, we have to be prudent. We have to see the strategy and the timing. The policy normalization, I think that's the point, one of the topic that we want to discuss from all the members regarding the strategy, regarding the timing, regarding the how we calibrate, how we plan, and then how we communicate to the market. That's the one that we think that policy mix able to address two purposes, as already mentioned by Governor Perry, stability and the growth. We will refer the two jobs, two outcomes coming from the IMF Integrated Policy Frameworks, and the BIS Macro-Financial Stability Framework as a reference for the policy mix. I think that's a good example how the IO seeing that we can combine monetary policy with macroprudential policy, with the FXI, foreign exchange intervention, with also the capital flows management and the fiscal. The last one, the fiscal should be put as a coordination between central banks and the government. That's the topic number one that as a chair, Indonesia will bring to the table regarding how we talk together, we refer the outcome already embarked by the IMF and the World Bank. The second on the rebuilding and growth and rebuilding, I think the issue on the local currency transaction. This is the one, I think when we talk during the G20, it's not easy topic because we are saying we have to diversify the currency. Diversified currency, it means we are not saying that we don't want a single currency, but we want to diversify from the hard currency to the local currency. Understanding that some of the countries in the region with the open financial account system like Indonesia, with also high reliance on the foreign fund, foreign investment. I think with the LCT, we try to at least to introduce how the LCT able to bring what we call as stability in the financial system, stability in the exchange rate. The third point, I think also on the rebuilding and growth, also we want to discuss on the issue of the, just a second. Okay, here there. On the issue of the flexibility of the exchange rate. The flexibility of the exchange rate, understanding that the depreciation is a part of the how we maintain the let's say full-fledged of the free system of the exchange rate, but then we don't want to have the excessive of the depreciation because of the spillover coming from the global side. I think that's the one also we also send the message to the to the global regarding how the policy taken by the major countries impacting to the emerging countries, to the developing countries on the exchange rate volatility, on the capital volatility. I think that's the first, the three topics, if I want to say, among others, on the first strategic thrust of the recovery and rebuilding. The second point on the digitalization, I think digitalization already talked with the governor, already mentioned many things. One we want to also mentioning here regarding the crypto issue. The cryptocurrency also one of the what we call as the legacy of the G20 last year regarding the supervision and also regarding the regulatory. We want also the MS, ASEAN member state, to discuss more, having some understanding regarding how we able to regulate of the crypto asset transaction with the basis, with the reference of regulation taken by the BIS. I think digital currency already part of the on daily transaction, on daily activities. It's like a supplement contributing to the traditional payment system. One that we talk on the crypto, that know probably one of the issue regarding the new international monetary system. What's the impact of the crypto on the currency management, on the capital flows management, even on the data flow? I think not the crypto. I think we are talking the digital currency, central bank digital currency, or we are talking about the other private digital currency. I think all those things will impacting our traditional monetary system. If we refer to the fund, if we refer to the BIS, they are not discussing yet the impact on the international monetary system. I think under our agenda, I think that's the part that we want to bring to the table regarding how ASEAN already look if we are not deciding to have one solution, but or at least understanding the impact of all digital issue to the monetary system. The last one on the sustainability, I think our Vice Minister, MOF, Pak Swasil already mentioning all the progress that already taken by Indonesia, but what we want to bring on the table during our chairmanship is how we address the transition risks. I think all the members, all the IMS having the goal of the 2030 SDG. We also have our target for the net zero emission. But one of the issues that always faced by us regarding the transition, how we finance the sustainable finance, how we upgrade our skill, capacity building, capacity competencies regarding moving to the renewable anything, renewable energy or everything regarding the green. I think it's not easy, but if we want to talk together, I think the good one for us to face together regarding the issue of the green. The last point, Kania, I think as my last remarks, regarding the ASEAN, the spirit of cooperation, the spirit of collaboration, the spirit for us to have a dialogue. I think we are small family, different last year when we are presidency G20 is very difficult. I think now we're able to showcase every progress from each EMS in all topics. We can learn from each other. We can hear and probably, of course, as a good part, good input for us for our policy making formulation. I stop here. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you very much, Deputy Governor. And that spirit of cooperation is also a great big step for a better future. And next to give his remarks, I would like to give to Deputy Managing Director at the Monetary Authority of Singapore, Mr. Leong Sing Cheong. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks very much. First, I just want to express our great appreciation to Bank Indonesia for hosting this high-level seminar and your tremendous warm hospitality. Second, I also want to express appreciation to Bank Indonesia as well as the Indonesian Ministry of Finance for their very, very strong leadership at the G20 and at ASEAN, always pushing to see how we can showcase ASEAN as the epicentrum of growth. Third, I also want to kind of resonate with earlier remarks made by Vice Minister Suhasil when he talked about the Jakarta's traffic jams. This was, I just arrived in Jakarta this morning, and indeed, I found myself caught in a traffic jam. But, the feeling that came over me was, oh, I'm so glad to be back. I think ASEAN, we are all very close to each other. Last 3 years have been tremendously difficult for many of us, not being able to visit each other, but it is great to be back. I think listening to the very inspiring sharing from Governor Perry, Vice Minister Suhasil, as well as Pak Dodi, I think 3 things come to mind. It's about maintaining financial stability, because indeed the current situation is complex and we continue to have to deal with risks, both external as well as domestic. But secondly, against that context, while we are managing the risks, it's about securing growth, right? Securing growth, current as well as future. Because at the end of the day, we have to look beyond the risks and make sure that our economies continue to grow. But third, it's also about building a better future for ASEAN, right? So I think, with all these three, key areas, actually, it makes for a very, very timely discussion at this high level, seminar. And I think, Indonesia's priorities for ASEAN this year, in terms of rebuilding and recovery, digital inclusion, as well as sustainability, are all tremendously important areas for us to work together and address. So with that, let me make 4 points. It will start off a little bit serious, but I hope it gets lighter and more positive from there. It starts off a bit serious because, we have to talk about risks, right? The first point I want to make is on inflation. And in terms of managing inflation, central banks must continue to show resolve in securing price stability. This ultimately is the first and foremost objective entrusted to central banks. And amidst uncertainty in growth outlooks, central banks need to move preemptively and decisively to signal to markets that higher policy rates would be maintained for as long as needed to credibly return inflation to target. There can be no going easy on monetary policy tightening. Although some domestic sacrifice in growth may be needed, the policy instruments available to central banks has to be set at an appropriately restrictive stance. Now, in this period of very difficult adjustments, the policymakers must ensure both price as well as financial stability. And these two objectives are very, very closely linked. First, cost and price inflation will bring about stresses on immediate cash flows of households and firms. Second, higher policy rates also exacerbate the financial stress on indebted firms, especially those with short-term foreign currency liabilities. In Singapore, we have progressively tightened our monetary policy 5 times since October 2021 to dampen price pressures by curbing imported inflation and restraining economic activity. In October 22, we recentered the midpoint of our policy band for the 3rd time in the year. Our expectation is that inflation will likely remain elevated in the near term before easing more discernibly in second half this year as imported inflationary pressures moderate and the tightness in domestic labor markets eases. So from that perspective, it's actually quite consistent with BI's projections. Inflation is elevated, but should ease towards the end of the year. My second point is that monetary policy actions by central banks should be considered within an integrated policy framework response, right? And this relates to the mix of policy tools that Governor Perry referred to just now, right? The deployment of a mix of policy tools can preemptively address the buildup of vulnerabilities in an economy. Policymakers can harness a broader toolkit to ensure consistency in policy response in the face of multiple domestic and external shocks to safeguard financial stability alongside domestic and external macroeconomic balance. For Asia, the larger driver affecting financial stability is exogenous, driven by tightening in monetary policy by central banks, major central banks, with exchange rates being the most important transmission channel for financial stress during high volatility periods. So crucially, an integrated policy framework response acknowledges the interactions between the multiple instruments used by policymakers to pursue different objectives and takes a more holistic view right, towards the trade-offs and complementaries between the goals. The good news is that Asia has a wealth of experience, practical experience, in addressing risks through the innovative use of different policy tools, such as asset purchases, capital flow measures, and FX interventions. So in fact, the adoption of integrated policy frameworks, alongside the presence of strong external buffers, was a key reason for the resilience of Asian markets in mitigating external volatility. So even at the height of the tightening cycle, outflows of capital and attendant currency impact in the region remained relatively orderly. And this also speaks to the resilience that Governor Perry mentioned earlier. My third point, in the same vein of addressing multiple objectives, fiscal measures can play a distributional buffer role to assist society's most vulnerable segments of society, right? This is the current juncture with high and elevated inflation is not the time for a broad-based fiscal expansion. Such a fiscal package would lift output further above potential and generate greater inflationary pressures as a result. This would dampen, if not nullify, the original intended effect of monetary policy tightening. So in addition, broad-based fiscal expansion measures are costly, and governments should carefully consider the form and quantum of support provided to households and firms, with equity and fiscal sustainability as the main guiding principles. So in Singapore, fiscal policy has stepped up support, but the measures have been carefully crafted to ensure that the greatest quantum of support goes towards small businesses and households. Cost of living support for vulnerable households in particular has been enhanced through multiple budget statements in 2022, mainly through direct or indirect transfers of income. For firms squeezed by the rapid step up in costs, various grant schemes were also introduced to co-fund investments in energy efficient equipment, wage increases for lower wage workers, with enhancements to existing loan schemes to mitigate cash flow concerns for SMEs. So my fourth and final point, which is securing a just transition and supporting digitalization, which will be key to preparing our economies for the future. So ASEAN has made very good progress in these two areas, sustainability and payments connectivity. Let me touch briefly on each of them. On sustainable finance, as Vice Minister Suhasil said, ASEAN has made good progress in developing a regional taxonomy to classify economic activities. The taxonomy will be a common reference on green and transition activities in ASEAN and will provide clarity to investors looking to support ASEAN's transition to net zero. I just wanted to say that, when usually, in discussions about taxonomy, people have the European taxonomy in mind. But I think, from our own conversations with many of the external stakeholders, they find the discussions on ASEAN taxonomy interesting because it tries to build in transition, right? It tries to build in and cater for transition in the taxonomy. This is very hard work, and we do know that within ASEAN, there's been very, very, involved discussions in this, but we are making progress, and I do think that this is something we should be proud of. On payments, ASEAN envisaged a multilateral network of payments linkages way back in 2016. We launched a cross-border real-time payment system linkage, the first of its kind, which enabled individuals to transfer funds across borders almost instantaneously, right? Instantaneous, cheap, right? Efficient, small value, catering to individuals, migrant workers, SMEs. Again, the focus is on SMEs. We have linked up with, Thailand, between Singapore's PayNow and Thailand's PromptPay, and are in the process of also having further discussions with our other key ASEAN counterparts, including Malaysia and Indonesia. But bilateral linkages in themselves, when you have a proliferation of bilateral linkages, is actually very time consuming, not very efficient, right? And hence, ASEAN again, I think under the inspirational leadership of Pak Perry, we have actually mooted the idea of a multilateral payments linkage. And if we go ahead to do so, this will also be another first, right? We were the first in the world to do a bilateral linkage. And I think we are actually at the cutting edge in terms of trying to develop a multilateral payments linkage within ASEAN. So there's, I think, much to look forward to. This payments linkage, I would say, having worked many years, in ASEAN cooperation, is a really meaningful breakthrough. We have been working on capital markets linkages for a very long time, right? And I would say it's still a work in progress, but it's really, really very heartening, right? To see that we've actually been able to make through on payments linkages. And I do hope that this is a sign of many, many more good linkage initiatives across many areas in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. And now to give remarks, Deputy Governor Dalaloy, the floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Ghana. And I would like to first of all express our appreciation for Bank Indonesia for inviting me to participate in these high-level seminars. And would like to also express our appreciation for the very warm hospitality arrangement of these excellent seminars. As Laopedia has also gone through the significant impact or affected by the previous several of the COVID-19 pandemic, and also the geopolitical and also the policy risks implemented by the large economies. And I think this is very good lesson learned for us to rethink and review again how to deal with these affected matters during the recovery period. And I think with this reason, it's very right time that Bank Indonesia and the government of Indonesia bring this team to this chairmanship in 2023, recovery, rebuilding, and also digital economy as well as sustainable economy. Bank of the Laopedia and the government of the Lao cannot disagree anymore with this team of chairmanship. And for Bank of the Laopedia, I would like to point out a few of areas, and the areas that maybe as a whole Asian member states can continue to work together and enhance our cooperation in terms of financial and banking sector as follows. First of all, to maintain the macroeconomic stability during this, after the pandemic, during the recession, that is very crucial and important. Like in Singapore, even though our economy is a small, open economies, and particularly probably is the only unique among the ASEAN member states that we are still dollarized economies. So the financial stability and macroeconomic stability is very important. And with this regard, that's why Bank of the Laopedia try to utilize all the tools, monetary policy tools we have in place, and some tools that we haven't used since the financial Asian crisis, particularly the issuance of central bank bonds and bills. We also did that during the year of 2022 and up to now in order to deal with inflation and the price stability. Price stability is the key core for the Central Bank of Laos in order to deal with the inflation, while at the same time we cannot ignore the participation in the supporting the economic growth of the government. And to do that, we try to mix the policy implementation among the monetary policy and also fiscal policy to be accordingly in line with each other, which is something different from the past, that sometimes our fiscal and monetary policy go in a different ways, but now we try to streamline that to work together, no matter whether it's the tax policy or the monetary policy, when we deal with this financial stability. With this regard, I would like to mention that in this area, through the chairmanship of Indonesia, we also put attention toward the financial stability. But one thing that maybe we can discuss and further work together more is about the exchange rate stability and the arrangement how to maintain this from the perspective of the region's context. We have done a lot, especially through the Working Committee on the Financial Services Liberalization, Capital capital account liberalization. But how to really maintain this, the exchange rate stability among the member states, I think that's probably another area that we can also start to discuss with. For the second area, the second economic priority deliverable, as mentioned by the Governor Perry this early session. With that regard, I would like to say that right now we found that the investment and trade among the ASEAN member states still very small, very shallow, compared to our investment with other non-ASEAN member states, no matter which country, and all as a whole together still very low. And in order to push that, our financial cooperation cannot go away without the structural and intra-ASEAN member state trade and investment enhancement. To deal with that, I think the payment is one of the area that will push the intra-ASEAN member state trade and investment. And this can be used not just only utilize the local currency, but also the digital payment cross-border, across the member states, also significant. For example, in Laos economy, we found that during the COVID-19 pandemic, very surprisingly that our e-commerce trade between Laos and China has been increased threefold. And that is significantly for us to think about how can we restructure the e-payment, cross-border e-payment for the to support the e-commerce, for example, and that can be also applied in the context of ASEAN member state as well. Laos economy is also, like I mentioned, very dollarized economy with our neighboring countries. And right now we are trying to work with the our neighboring country to connect our payment, cross-border payment through the bilateral scheme, through the retail payments, by connecting our retail payments switching to our neighboring countries, 2-3 countries that we have been talking around with them. And this might lay out a good foundation for the future for us, for the multilateral payment linkage. For us, at least we can learn that what are the pros and cons and what are gaps that we need to minimize, and those gaps in order to move toward the multilateral linkages. As part for the financial sustainability and the green finance area, the third EPD, like this previous session that the Vice Minister of Finance of Indonesia mentioned about, in some country we are going through the transition, apply the transition, how to say, criteria or activity into our green finance taxonomy. But at the same time, the support toward the new area financing for green activities is also very important. With this regard, in Indonesia and Vietnam's already full and need to transfer from coal energy to the green energy. While in Laos, PDR, we are very resource abundant in terms of producing hydro, which is green energy, and that has gained a big momentum in Lao economy, and we started to export that. How the investment in this area is still potential and significant, but at the same time, our financial and capital investment is very limited. So this could be created an opportunity for our ASEAN member states to think around and how can be those funds be mobilized toward those kind of investment and development. And in turn, we can share that usage among our ASEAN member states. So to conclude my remarks, I would like to say that through this chairmanship of Indonesian, we really support the initiative and also the team, the deliverable, and that would be very significant as Laos PDR will be the next chair for the 2024 for us to be able to, continue this team and to continue this activity, and that is very important. And the most important is already time for us to change. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you for that, Deputy Governor Avatana. And last but not least, I would like to invite Assistant Governor Bank of Thailand, Mrs. Chayawadi Chayanan, to give her remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I would like to first extend my great appreciation to the Bank Indonesia for inviting me to speak at this high-level seminar, and also the very warm hospitalities. And I would like to also support the policy economic deliverables, financial tracks under the Indonesia's chairmanship, as they resonate a lot with Thailand's cases. So today I would like to bring examples of cases that Thailand is facing or experiencing that would fit or that would actually goes well with the PED that the Indonesia has proposed. First, it's about how we're dealing with spillovers from impact of global financial markets uncertainties. So for Thailand, the spillover impact from global financial market uncertainty is mostly felt through exchange rates, as DMD Singh Chong was mentioning. There were spillovers from the US Treasury yields to the government bond yields as well, but we don't experience it that much. But the exchange rate, however, was clearly a conduit of external shocks for Thailand. So if you look at the common components, 86% or more than 80% of exchange rate movements or Thai baht movements in Thailand has been contributed by external sectors. I think we are sharing the common factors among ASEAN countries. So if we look at the last 3 quarters for Thailand, the first 3 quarters in 2022, the Thai baht depreciated 12% due to the Fed rate hikes, aggressive hike, right? And before the last quarter, we appreciated back. So net depreciation that's only left, we had only 3.6% depreciation. So you can see the high volatilities coming from the external factors. The appreciation on the last quarters, of course, were coming from the market expectation that the Fed will slow down the hikes and also the China reopening. So that contributes a lot to Thailand's prospects from the market's views. So as we see the volatilities that was so high, it went all the way up. I think we had highest volatilities in ASEAN, which is 11% during the first 2 months of 2023, coming from 4 and 5% before COVID. And during COVID, we only had 6 and 7%. So that's the highest volatilities. So how do we deal with it? So what we're trying to do is that we allow the Thai baht to move. As you can see from the higher volatilities, that means we allow the Thai baht to move according to the market forces. We did limited foreign exchange intervention, because we want the currencies to actually be market driven more. And we see the market react quite well. We didn't think they would react as well before. So FXI is very limited, and we only go in to maintain market functioning. And what we did even more is the communication. We have to communicate with the market to actually ensure the facts about the market movement, and also clarifying the misunderstanding, because we had lost a lot of reserve in numbers, but not the actual reserves. And people were scared or panicked that we are going back to the 1997 crisis again. So that would be a key panic that we don't want to happen. So that we did a lot of communication, and alongside we also implementing. We have also been implementing the new FX ecosystem, which is to allow more flexibility for Thai corporates and individuals in managing their current and potential FX risk. So now they can hedge in a bigger or larger amount, and also they can forecast in terms of the longer periods when they do FX risk. So not only we communicate, we ask them to adjust by trying to deal with the risk itself. And also one thing that actually stands out is also the use of local currency. That's very complement or in terms of the Thailand and other countries. We have had arrangements with some ASEAN peers already with the local currency usage, and that's also one of the key deliverables that the PED would touch upon. The second examples would be the policy mixes. So during the pandemic, I think all countries went all out in terms of trying to shore up economic growth and activities. So as well as Thailand, so we went all out. The government spending has increased by 14%. We lowered policy rates to the lowest in histories, and I think lowest in the region. And also the financial measures, we also went all out, and we actually relaxed the macroprudential policy in terms of the LTV ratios for the second and third home, so that people with large savings could also spend. And that would help because the real estate sectors has very long supply chain. So that would help shore up the economy a bit. But now the policy mix has changed. Once the economy recovered, the K-shaped recovery in Thailand, and I think a lot of ASEAN peers also facing the same situation. So the K-shaped recovery is also requires K-shaped normalization. So with the broad-based policies such as policy rates and also the debt moratoriums, we gradually unwinded, left over only by the financial policies that is targeted to fragile debtor groups, such as household and SMEs in tourism-related sectors. And I think within this year, hopefully, or next year, the policy mix will change again. Because in Thailand, we had quite a large debt overhangs. And going forward, we really need to fix that so we don't have burdens in terms of economic growth going forward. But again, to use the macroprudential policies such as debt service ratio or responsible lending, we really have to wait until the lower leg of the K is coming back up, or at least reach the pre-COVID level. So this is very key that I think the PED would also pick up and discuss. I think this is very key, and also this is consistent with what the IMF and also the BIS is looking into in terms of policy mixes. And I think they really need to take the timing, the policy mixes during different stage of economy into account. And I think this is a very great time that we discuss it here first in ASEAN. And for the last examples, I think it's in terms of, I think a lot of people were talking about this already, which is the transitional economy. We are seeking the same thing with regard to digitalization and climate change, which is smooth transition. So with that goal, there are two key things that I think ASEAN corporations could benefit members. So ASEAN could be a platform for facilitating connectivity between memberships. The bilateral payment linkages that we already have between ASEAN members are good examples of where connecting the hard infrastructure paved the way for the needed change in regulation, which is the soft infrastructure, to facilitate further connectivities. While those payment linkages were not necessarily done through ASEAN, but they do serve as a basis for discussion or cooperation under the WC, such as PSS, which is currently tasked with exploring multilateral payment connectivity going forward. So same as climate change, where ASEAN can be platform for interoperability standard settings and also taxonomies we were discussing, like DMD Sing Chong was mentioning. And also in terms of climate change, ASEAN platform, ASEAN could be a platform for, I think, for peer learning. This is particularly important for climate change, in which level of progress could vary quite a bit across ASEAN member countries. So sustainable finance implementation, in particular, is an area that I think would greatly benefit from peer learning, as countries like Singapore or Malaysia has higher experience and are way ahead of the game. So sharing experience on what works, what doesn't work, what should be done, can definitely help speed up the implementation for those still in early stages, such as Thailand. So as you can see, all these key examples for Thailand fits in the PEDs, and these are only few areas of potential cooperations of ASEAN. And I believe that under the Indonesia chairmanship, there would be significant progress for us in this area and also going forward for us. Thank you.
Very well, thank you for that, Assistant Governor Chayawadi. Going back to Deputy Governor Pak Dodi, yeah, you help me out here. I mean, we've heard some key issues that has been experienced throughout this pandemic, and also in response to the PED offered by Indonesia as chairman of this year's ASEAN. And I'm great to know, I'm happy to know that these key issues that are have been presented by ASEAN member state, here represented by Singapore, Laos, and also Thailand, are all in line with these PEDs. But what I can perhaps highlight as well from the sharing that we just heard earlier are how each individual states have addressed successfully, in terms of the key issues or key perhaps like spillover effect when we talk about post-COVID-19 condition right now. But I'm just wondering, what can we do collectively better? So in this particular instance, I have time to ask you a couple of questions before I open to the floor as well to contribute to our Q&A. Maybe from Indonesia, can you share experiences, the learning lessons, especially throughout this pandemic, when we talk about the trade-off between maintaining stability and supporting economic growth in the country? What has Indonesia learned so far?
Okay, thank you. I think I'm hearing all the participants, all DGs, what they're viewing, and I'm happy that we are in line with the PDs. The first, I think as a central bankers, we are looking, of course, forward looking in terms of we are formulating the policy response. We are looking the cycle. We are looking the finance, the cycle of the economy, and the cycle of the business. I think now most of the countries in the region, we are still in the mid of the business cycle, of the economic cycle. So I think still for the economy able to grow without having pressure from the supply side. Yes, one or two countries we are having issue on the output gap. So it means they have to be prudent. I think they are not able to having a high growth without giving some strong investment for the capacity GDP potential. economic potential. The first one. The second one, looking on the cycle of the finance. I think also countries in the region, we are still, even Indonesia, still in the below of the financial cycle. So I think we are able to at least injecting the credit growth higher for the, supporting the economy. So looking the cycle, I think is very important for the central banks. I will saying that for the central banks, the AMS, we are in the same direction that we are able to have a higher growth without having, pressure from the demand side, at least 1 or 2 years ahead. The issue probably mostly coming from the investment side. Indonesia, one of the country, probably we are having problem with output gap. It's depend on the countries. I think that's the benefit we talk together, looking how the policies able to take by the authorities. The second on the issue on the financial side, countries in the region also having the issue on the what we call as the optimal lending, the lending growth without any having pressure to the financial stability. I think that's the one also looking by central banks, by authorities regarding what does growth of the credit fit for the economy. If we are talking with the central banks at the time, I think we are in the same language. The same language for us, for central banks, able to maintain two things, stability and the growth, supporting the momentum of the recovery. In that set, I want to respond what we already saying by the DG Leong and also AG Chamandi regarding the policy mix. I think the beauty of the policy mix is give to the central banks a list of policies. The flexibility is depend on the condition of the economy. Probably at this time, we are able to give, accommodative for the macroprudential policy. As AG Chamandi saying, probably next year will be different. I think Indonesia also will be different. If the cycle is already on the top, then we have to be prudent. So I think the policy mix, what I heard is already part of the, ammunition, part of the, what you call as under policy formulation that taken by those central banks. The one I miss from those speakers regarding how you mix the central bank policy with the fiscal side. That's the one that we from Governor Perry mentioned in the earlier session is how we also collaborate with the fiscal side. I think what we call as the policy mix as a national wide rather than only on the central bank side.
Any response for that? DMD, do you have any response for that?
No,
In terms of coordination, how important is it to have, when we talk regionally, when we talk about regional cooperation, how important is it, despite the different factors of affecting each member states, how important is it to have a well-calibrated and well-coordinated policy response, not only in the side of monetary, but also in coordination with the fiscal side?
No, I think when we think about regional collaboration, it's one thing to say that we are all coordinated, right, and aligned. It's not. We don't take it as a given because ASEAN is actually quite diverse. I like to call it strength in diversity, right? We are all different, right? But and we don't take it as a given that we will always be aligned. But it's a good thing that we are. The second thing I want to say is, well, alignment is one thing. It seems to be a good thing. But I would say if you look deeper at alignment, two important things. The first is something which Governor Perry said, and I think our Thai colleague also mentioned, is the way we conduct our policies in a way that actually fosters resilience over time, right? It is not something that captures the imagination. It is not a big bang thing, right? It is not a, something, that makes the headlines, but each of us in our own individual way conducts our policies, right, in a prudent and calibrated way, right, that undergirds, right, that provides a very, very strong foundation to underlying economic growth, right? That is very understated, but that is actually very key. Throughout all the ups and downs, and you mentioned volatility, throughout all the ups and downs in the economic cycles, there's something very resilient about ASEAN growth, right? And this is something we want to safeguard very, very carefully, not to be taken for granted. The other thing is, working together to really push boundaries, right? So at the basic layer, right, let's make sure, we safeguard stability. But, in safeguarding stability, that actually gives us the opportunity to push boundaries, right? And, earlier we discussed payments linkages, payments connectivity is something that we've made a breakthrough, right? I would say the other example that was given just now was actually in the area of sustainability. We speak a lot about peer learning, but actually, the breakthrough last year was energy transition mechanism under the Indonesian's G20 leadership, right? That's a breakthrough, right? It's a very, very difficult issue, right? It's also controversial in its own way, right? But within the context of the region, right, finding a way to actually figure a way out, right, on managed phase out of coal within the region. Very difficult. We made a breakthrough last year. And I think the opportunity for us is to ride on that and see how we can scale that across the region. Governor Perry mentioned ASEAN Banking Integration Framework, right? Where, today ASEAN Banking Integration has proceeded, right, based on existing business models, existing regulatory frameworks, but with new digital business models, right? Is there a way to rethink ASEAN banking integration, right? And I think that's also another area which is also right for pushing the boundaries. So, it's, as I said, we are very, very happy that, despite all our differences, across ASEAN, we are all aligned, but there's really great opportunity to see how we can, number one, right, continue to safeguard stability, but safeguarding stability in a way that allows us to make new breakthroughs.
Right. That's a very important point to make, because my next question will be, before I open to the floor, I have to open to the floor. There is one question to be asked. I would like to ask Deputy Governor Batana, when we talk about making breakthrough, we're also talking about innovative ways of doing things in terms of policy making, in terms of, let's say, policy integration in ASEAN. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, I think, first of all, apart from what we have to, each individual country safeguard its own stability. And
do you have that flexibility, do you feel?
I think we do not have that much flexibility. In case of Lao PDR, we face numbers of challenges and limitations in terms of capacity, in terms of vulnerability, in terms of financial vulnerability, but we have no choice, I guess. So we have to really cope with this, try to bring up whatever we have in order to deal with this impact, and learning from this lesson, we need to build a stronger, more resilient in order to deal with another wave that might come in the future. And in terms of to break through the barriers among the ASEAN member states, I think apart from what Deputy Governor Chong mentioned about, I would like to add one more area that's is about the when we try to break through and do this limit, the breakthrough, the limitation, and open more for the digital area, for the sustainable finance. The most important is that we have to also think the ways that how to bring the low pace economies to the up the scale of the pace of the more advanced economies. Right. And that is very important, that because so of the characteristic of the so diverse and so different condition in each our member state, we need to find out the potential, the area that we can bring that up to the level that can shortcut the pace of the development and the connectivity, the collaboration. That's what I would like to say.
Okay, very well. AG Chaiwadi, do you have anything to add to that?
I think also one thing that came to my mind was we probably didn't talk about external forces so much, and I think fragmentation is one thing that actually enforces our cooperation within the region.
Are we going to be more successful collectively as a region?
I hope, and I believe that we will, and we have to. I think under this uncertainties and fragmentation that we see from outside, I think that calls for and the good examples would be the payment connectivities and also the use of local currencies. People were asking whether is it a good thing that we have bilateral, like we do it in pairs rather than multilaterals. But
what do you think?
Right. But given this current state, I think the availability is or resiliency is better than the first best, which is efficiency. So I think going forward, I expect to see breakthrough. Trying to make this second best the first best. Maybe we can break through in terms of multilateral cooperation, so that in terms of payment connectivity, so that we get the cost, the efficiencies and also the convenience of the retails, and I expect to see that from us, and I think we don't have to wait for long.
Okay, very well. So we have to push through, with cooperation. I'd like to open the floor now for just one question because we don't have a lot of time. So it has to be a great question. Any takers from the audience? I know there is one of you, I think, that is going to ask a question. I'm hopeful before we have to wrap up. One question? No? No takers? No takers? Budi? That's good. Okay. But, before we have to wrap up, this is the last call? No takers? Yes? Okay. Very well. Go ahead. If you can please stand up and formulate your questions. Thank you. And please identify yourself as well. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Chitra from Venus University. Thank you so much for inviting me to this high-level seminar. So my question is, for all the panelists, how is the government promote the inclusive digital transformations during the threat of the global recessions and during this time? And what is the role of us as academicians or the university to take a part of that, the actions of the minister and all the governor here? Thank you so much.
Very well. Thank you so much for that, Chitra. Deputy Governor, Pak Dodi, would you like to take this one first? Okay. We start with you then, Deputy Governor Watana, and then we go along the digital.
Thank you very much for the questions. Chitra, yes. But can I recall the question once again?
The question was, how can the government promote inclusive digital transformation, and what role can academicians play in these efforts?
Financial inclusive, right?
Inclusive digital transformation.
Inclusive digital transmission. I think in this area, particularly in Laopedia, is very important. Right now, in our country, we use so many currencies, and we have our economy is still the payment system still significantly dominated by the cash system. So fintech and digital payment is very important, not just only to support the international trade or investment, but also in terms to deal with the domestic payment system in order to minimize the cash payment system in our country, in our economy. And that's to also to minimize all the vulnerability related to the, money laundering and other those kind of activities that we need to combat with right now. And that's why digital finance is very important, and we need to put that into upper scale in terms of further development. What can university or students, academic can participate in this area? I think significant, because those are the base of the users in the futures. And in some countries, like in my country, in Laos, in the urban areas, significant, and this is a significant cost of the government investment in the education, because which is so different from Indonesia, where we are the landlocked country, and we do not have that so many, islands, but at the same time, our population is so low density. So it's require a significant cost of the development of education. So digital education can go in line with the digital finance, and that's if the population cannot pick up and be capable to use these digital fintechs and digital payments, it's useless for us to really to develop. So financial inclusion through the utilization of digital fintechs must go along and hand in hand with the education's development.
Very well, thank you for that, Pa Dodi. I think it was also mentioned earlier about upgrading skills. When we talk about digital transformation, inclusivity, it also means that we need to upgrade skills in order for us to be ready. Do you agree with this? And what role can academician play?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if we are talking about inclusion, I think I remember refer to 2022 when we are as a presidency of G20. Inclusion means that economic inclusion and financial inclusion. Inclusion means not only for the SMEs that we already come and understand, but also inclusion for the youth and women. With inclusion, I think we have access to all sectors, access to the economy, access to the financial sectors. The second one, if we are talking on the SMEs as a common understanding of the financial inclusion, is of course we will bring the quality of the SMEs by having them to have access to the market, to the economy, by having them access to the banks. Mostly part of the SMEs, even micro SMEs, is unbankable. So I think Indonesia, I will bring mostly on Bank Indonesia itself. We have like a program projects with the SMEs across the nation. One of the quality of the SMEs, if they're able to be digitalized SMEs, it means they're able to access to the wider market, not only in the domestic, but also in the international market, and also access to the financial sector, to the source of financing. We are working all. I think the issue of the one that asking to you regarding the role of the student, the university, is very significant. You will be part at the end, also will be players of the SMEs. I think understanding digital is most important. Understanding the risk of digital, because we always know the benefit of digital, but please understand the risk of digital. I think the one Indonesia, the government now working on the digital literacy. I think some of the issue in the market regarding the victim of the, some of us regarding not understanding the products, the behind of the any instrument coming from the financial sectors. I think under ASEAN chairmanship, Indonesia will not only discussing the financial inclusion, but also the financial literacy.
That's a really good point. Thank you for that, Pak Budi. And then DMD, Sing Chung, do you have anything to add? Do you feel like Singapore is a step ahead in these regards in digital transformation? What has been the experience like, and what is the role of the academician, do you think?
Yeah. So I just wanted to answer your question, but relating it back to SMEs, because one of the things about digital transformation is, think big, start small, move fast, right? For us, when we think about harnessing the benefits of technology, there's nothing like getting your hands dirty and starting a project and solving big problem statements. And the problem statement that we defined in relation to your question was, would it be possible to think about creating a digital platform that will connect, SMEs across regions? And the regions we picked was Asia and Africa, right? How difficult is that, right? SMEs to obtain financing within our domestic economies, we are familiar with. SMEs to go cross-border within ASEAN, also very challenging. But how difficult it is to connect SMEs between Asia and Africa. What does it take to connect them, right? I think it boils down to maybe 2 or 3 key things. First, empowerment, right, which speaks to education and leveling up their capabilities so that they can be able to operate in the digital realm. Second, as they enter the digital realm, how do you give them track record credentials, right, that enables them to access financing, right? So there's first onboarding of SMEs onto the platform, and that part we work with respective governments, right, who will perform the first onboarding filters and screen and bring SMEs on board the platform. And second, once on the platform, how can the platform make it easy for them to discover, right, their trade partners on the platform? So this is trade discoverability. And to the extent that they find, trading partners on the platform, how do you make financing available to them, right? Such that, the fulfillment of that cross-border trade, with their SME partners across regions and within the region can happen seamlessly, right? So that is the problem statement that we set out for ourselves. I wouldn't get into how we actually, are working on the problem, but I think it speaks to, really thinking about big problems, right? Big problems, and thinking about how, technology can be applied to those problems, right? And I have to say that, based on some early signs of progress, it's been a very complex endeavor, right? The project, we called it Business Sense Borders. We announced it at the FinTech Festival, Singapore FinTech Festival, about 3 years ago. Yeah. Today, there is a company that has been launched to realize that vision. That company is called Proxterra, and Proxterra stands for Connecting the Earth, right? So let us know if you're interested in that project. But it just goes to show that if you frame the problem big enough, meaningful enough, and substantive enough, there's actually hope of bringing about meaningful change. It's not just a central bank working with financial institutions and trade associations and bodies, but clearly a lot of role for academics, to weigh in as well.
Okay, very well. Thank you for that. See, it pays to ask questions, right? Okay, and last but not least, AG Chayawadi, if you have anything to add to that, we have to cover other areas as well. We have like health and food security issues that have not been addressed that will be also a main topic to be discussed. But what do you think in conclusion? Maybe you can give sort of a wrap up of what we are going to see, especially through this year's ASEAN chairmanship. Do you feel like there is going to be a breakthrough happening?
I'm waiting for the big project that we'll be seeing, Chong, and I think we can load that up to the region.
What are your hopes and expectations, right, basically?
Right. I think it's a cooperation role, not only from ASEAN, but also the government and also the central banks. And if you permit, I want to go back a little bit to provide you a good examples of what we did in terms of trying to promote financial inclusion for not only for the SMEs but also for the poor. During the pandemic, what we did, or what the government of Thailand did, was rather than, since no one wants to come out from their home and get subsidies or extra incomes, what they did was they asked the poor to actually register on prompt pay, which is the mobile payment, and receive the money through that, regardless of their lack of confidence, lack of comfort. But I think for survival modes, they vow and they did that. And if you look at the take up, the ratio in Thailand on prompt pay or mobile payment, it went up 2 digits during the pandemic. I think that's kind of an opportunity within the crisis, and I think that's also a very good examples of us at the moment, that we see a lot of uncertainties and fragmentations from outside, and like I said before, why not taking this crisis to be good opportunities for corporations, and again, this year under the Indonesian chairmanship, I think we have a lot of good things in waitings, and I look forward to seeing progress from our corporation this year, and also the breakthrough, which could also start at this year as well.
Yeah, very well. And I think that wraps up our discussion for this second panel. Thank you very much to all the DGs, Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Indonesia, Mr. Dodi Budi Waluyo, Deputy Managing Director at the Monetary Authority of Singapore, Mr. Leong Sing Chong, and Deputy Governor of Bank of the Lao, PDR, Mrs. Batana Dalaloy, and Assistant Governor, Bank of Thailand, Mrs. Chayawadi Chai Anand. Thank you so much for your insights and remarks. And thank you, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in this session. Finally, we have come to the end of the high-level seminar, ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth. Thank you again for all of you who have joined the seminar. Delegates of the SLC meeting, we now invite you to join our hospitality dinner in the Museum of Bank Indonesia. We will travel together from this building's lobby, and our hospitality officers will assist you for the departure. And to conclude, maybe a big round of applause for our distinguished panelists. I'm Kanya Sutisnawinata, signing off. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening. And I hand back to the MC.